Now we got some good news and we got some bad news. The good news is I'm going to sit in front of the 2,000-gallon aquarium as we talk about the following information. The following information is what the bad news is. That's the best way that I could start this video. That didn't make me even more depressed and disappointed and demoralized, demotivated than I already am. You guys remember like 4 weeks ago, it's back on July 4th, that I made a video about my public aquarium, talking about we're now at a standstill, I can't do anything else, there's too much debris, everything's in the way, I'm not, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're gonna get to all that. Furthermore, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, 4 months ago I announced that I would be launching a public aquarium. Rewind time to November 2019 is when I first started like recording notes on plans and things I wanted to do. So this has been on my mind for a little bit of time at least. With that said, when March of this year came along, I found a place, end of March. I knew about this place. I've known about it for years, and because it's been empty and available for like 4 years or more. I even remember when it was up for sale. I live in Truro, Nova Scotia. It's a small town. You kind of know about everything. And I saw this place and I thought it was perfect. I thought that it was perfect location, perfect layout. I loved absolutely everything about it. And I really wanted it, and I thought that we could really make it into something special for the local area as well as you guys on the internet. And many of you guys were dying to come see it in person. So in March I started having conversations with the realtor on this location. And went to go see it. One thing turned to another. I'm not going to get into the small talk and stuff. I mean, how much is the heat average a month? I'm not going to get into all that. But when it comes to the wall, that's the biggest concern, sorta. It's truly not the biggest concern anymore. It's like, it's a nightmare, but as this video progresses and I divulge more and more details about what I've been experiencing for the past 2 months, you're going to realize that the wall isn't that big of a deal in comparison. But the first time I heard about them needing to install a firewall in this building, it was in April on the 23rd, when it says the landlord needs to install a firewall in this space. Once the offer to lease is signed, he will have this firewall completed. I never thought much of that. I said, oh, well, I mean, that sounds like it's pretty important, but as soon as I sign this lease, they'll have it completed. I was like, okay, sounds like some high pressure sales tactics, but at the same time, why hasn't this been done for the past 4 years or so? You've been intending to lease it. It's not like I'm the first one that seen this empty building. I figured out who owns it. This place has been listed for quite some time. So the intention to lease has always been there. You probably should have always had that wall up. Of course, you want to make sure you have a tenant, etc. But these are not my problems. And we went back and forth for a few days about, how the place is heated. I'm looking down at my phone because I have notes and dates. I don't want to get any of this wrong. Trust me, I can't get any of this wrong. You'll understand why in a minute. On April 26th, they said the landlord is aiming to have his new firewall completed by no later than the end of May. So on the 27th, I signed the offer to lease, which is essentially, here's what we're intending to offer you. If you agree to this, we'll draft up a proper lease. And they're very close in, the official lease has more mumbo jumbo, like cancellations or something, like nothing that applies to anything that we're going to be talking about today. So, but in that offer, it talked about the wall, and that's kind of why I want to mention it, is because I want to bring you up to where my mind was with all this. I mean, I didn't walk into this knowing that this wall wasn't going to be done, and I'm taking a huge risk. So there's two parts, and they kind of relate to each other. One of them was the fixturing period. The landlord agrees to grant the tenant with a fixturing period effective June 1st. During this time, I'm only responsible to pay the utilities. I don't pay rent during that time, and rent's the least of my concern. Rent was technically a third of the expenses for that building. The heat and power to run that place are astronomical, absolutely insane. Put it in perspective, I think my power bill for the month of June, just to use the lights and plug a few things in, was like $800. Wait till we fill it with thousands and thousands of watts of heaters and lights, and yeah, I can't imagine what this place would cost for power, especially heat, but you're going to understand why in a second. Part 9, the landlord shall install a fireproof wall between the two units of the building prior to the date of the fixturing period. Now, those are clearly relatable because the fixturing period clearly states that it would be June 1st. So again, I'm under the assumption that this will all be done. These are agreement. I'm signing this based off of what's in it. That makes sense, right? That's fair. That's what those are for. If I will sign this, if you do what you say is in it. If I sign this and you don't do it, it's void, right? That seems fair. That's what contracts are for. May 7th, which was 10 days later, I signed the main lease. They had to draft it up, send it to him, send it to me, that sort of thing. But based off of everything I was led to believe at that point, I knew that I have nothing to worry about. This building would be available for me on June 1st. It will be up to code. Everything will be ready. I can move in. One thing I was concerned about was the cleaning. The previous tenants never cleaned. There were still fixtures in there. There were still holes in the walls and stickers and logos and signs up, and it used to be a fitness facility, so there was like chin-up bars and the things that I wanted to get out ahead of the fixturing period, because I wanted the fixturing period to be a blank slate so I can get in and start painting and building and whatnot. But anyways, signed it on May 7th. May 14th, a week later, after drafting up my plans for that specific space, I began purchasing everything that I was going to require. Not a big deal. On May 18th, a building permit was submitted as an application, and on May 24th, I was forwarded that to me from the landlord. Now, in the building permit, I'm not really responsible for any of this. I even asked the landlord, I was like, what's all this? Why are you giving me this? Do I have to do all this? He's like, no, well, you just get the proper fire extinguisher. So I went to a hardware store, picked up the right kind that was required and installed it, and that was my end of things. But in the permit, it clearly states that what the building is going to be used for, and that it is going to require a firewall. But if we look at 14, an occupancy permit, which is what this is required from this office prior to any use or occupancy. Essentially meaning that all of this needs to be done before anybody can move in there. But at this point, the firewall still wasn't done. But on May 28th, I got the keys, which is only 4 days later, because I was going to get in there and do all that cleaning I wanted to do. And by June 1st, the wall's still not started, but told over and over again, it's a quick job, couple weeks. We'll work around you, so just go ahead. We're just going to be working on this wall here. And the way it was described at the time is we're just slapping up fire retardant drywall type of deal. Something to that extent. I have it on video recording. I'll have to search a lot of that footage, but slap it up there. We'll work around you. Don't worry about it. I was concerned about dust. He's like, oh, we'll put a tarp up. Again, led me to believe that everything's going to be okay. At that point, I had spent $41,118.26. Everything was bought and designed around that location. I had to do something. I'm not in a situation or a position that I can take my savings and just throw it out because these guys aren't doing what they said. By June 22nd, a contractor finally came in and assessed the location. They weren't going to do it, so it was way more work than we were led to believe, and they walked off the job. Yet they told me that the ceiling is a matter of time before that comes down. Hope you got insurance, and they were laughing about it, like this is a serious thing. And they're like, yeah, who knows when that comes down, but that is coming down. That's a matter of time. That's serious. Needs to. So I started getting a little concerned about that. 3 days later, scaffolding company come up. They refused to do the demolition, said they didn't sign up for that. They are also told the building was going to be empty. And more red flags, like I'm constantly hearing something being said to them versus being said to me. It's like we're both being played, being misled. And that's factual. That's literally what happened. And all the contractors, and there was like 4 or 5 different companies that came through there, all had the same feelings about the landowner or the landlord. Yeah, they're like, we thought this place was being empty. Do you have any idea how big the scaffolding is, and especially some of the walls, and it's going to be 26 feet long pieces, etc. I was like, I don't know where you're going to put it, because he said you're going to work around me, and you're going to put up, a drape or a tarp to protect my stuff. And they're like, this is the first we heard of that. But they also talked about that ceiling. That's a matter of time. When they installed the scaffolding, that's kind of when I realized how invasive and how big of a problem and a big of a job this is actually going to be. And they also said there's no way when this wall's torn down that any of this is going to be back exactly the way it was. But on July 25th, that same day that they installed the scaffolding, landlord texted me, said, I expect 2 weeks to get the job done. All right, well, at least it started. At least we're moving somewhere. So even though we're moving into July, I figured, my son's birthday's coming up. I guess I'll just, abandon the building for a little bit and do my own thing. But the scaffolding sat there for 10 days. Didn't budge. In the meantime, I had to continue to do as little as possible. Not as little as possible, but as much as I could do, even though it was just small little things. I couldn't move the tanks in. There was no way I was doing that. I already knew I was being misled. I already knew this was going to be a disaster. But I kept doing as little as I could and setting things up and building the odd thing and, working on the offices and that sort of deal. And, the hardest thing was keeping everybody interested, like you guys. It's so tough to make interesting videos when there's nothing going on. No, okay, we'll build another stand. We're going to build another rack. We're going to build another stand. There's only so much I could do there. July 5th, the wall finally started. These guys were nice. These were the best of all of them. Really liked them. But again, mention the ceiling.
This is a lot of real estate in here, but you can't do anything with it until I think you'd be better off tearing her gutting her out and putting apartments in it.
Yeah.
Forever. Who's ever going to do something with it? Because it's just the big thing is the ceiling right now. That ceiling it's got to be done, and that's thousands of dollars, probably tens of thousands of dollars.
I'm telling you, every contractor did this. And this was going to cost tens of thousands of dollars that probably I would have to be responsible for. According to the lease, it does say that I'd be responsible for things like that and damages and repairs and that sort of thing. This is when I was also told, and this is only based off what he said, I never confirmed it, but he said the walls are not insulated in that building. Not in the portions that I'm in. I was like, they're not insulated. We're in Canada. The walls have to be insulated. In fact, we're in Nova Scotia, Canada. We get a lot of snow. He's like, well, the building's well constructed. Everything is fantastic here besides insulation. The only insulation is on that ceiling, but that's going to come down eventually. And that's when I kind of was thought, I was like, why is that ceiling coming? Everybody keeps telling me the ceiling's coming down. He said, on top of that ceiling, it's just a drop ceiling. On top of that ceiling, there are hundreds, if not thousands of pounds of insulation. That is too heavy for that drop ceiling. I didn't know that insulation was up there. I just thought it was a drop ceiling like I have in my basement. Every once in a while a tile can come loose or, didn't cut it properly, so it's like drops down a little bit. You just fix it, shove it back up and, tuck it in type of deal. So I noticed that the ceiling was in rough shape when I got there, but I never thought anything other than, these are older tiles. They get a little flimsy. Not a big deal. I'll replace a couple of them or something. But and I was like, oh, wow. All that insulation up there. And we're talking insulation that goes in walls, the big padding. I've never seen anything like that on a drop ceiling, but I guess you got to insulate it somehow. Could have insulated it properly. With all those aquariums in there and all that humidity, what do you guys think is going to happen when that insulation gets saturated with the humidity and evaporated water? It's going to double, triple, quadruple in weight and come crashing down. So no wonder some of the contractors were saying, you better have good insurance. I didn't care about the insurance. My insurance will go up, or I have to pay a deductible or whatever. I don't care about that. What I cared about and what really made, me swallow hard was, what if somebody was in here with me when that happened? What if there was a group of people I was giving a tour to and that came down on them? That's what I was concerned about. I no longer care about the wall. I don't care about the walls not being insulated, although that was a shocker. Good luck heating that place in the winter. What if the ceiling comes down? That's not a what if that I'm comfortable, sleeping with. By the next day, I realized, and they had only started their demolition, and they were very respectful, very clean, very quiet, and that sort of thing. I went in the next day to check on them and see how far things were. They got completed by like 4 o'clock, something like that. But there's only so much they can clean. Absolutely everything was covered in dust. And I was thinking, well, once they bring in this drywall and they've got to cut it and do all these other construction things, everything's going to be coated and it's going to be like destroyed. So I took out all of my aquariums, all of my equipment. I took everything besides the stands that I technically had nowhere to store them. My storage facility that I'm already paying for was already full. I was like, I'll leave the stands. They can at least work around them, and I'll wipe them off or something, or give them a fresh coat of paint, I thought. And again, keep in mind, landlord did tell me over and over again, we'll work around you, we'll put tarp up, don't worry about it, bring everything in. So imagine if I did have all of these tanks delivered and the cages and materials and everything that I wanted in there on site. You'll see why I didn't in a second. I didn't know it was going to get this bad, but I'm glad I took everything out. Again, this contractor assumed it was going to be another 2 weeks, so I waited 2 weeks. I was patient. I went back on July 19th, and this is what I walked into. So this is July 19th. Still not completed, and it gets way worse. Look what they've done. Everything is just destroyed in here. Stacking up all their scratched up all my sands. Look at this. Everything just busted apart. What a disaster. Look at this. And I was supposed to be able to move in here and bring animals in here. This is a disaster. This is why. Oh my Lord. Look how bad this is. Look what they've done to my stands. This is why I had to get those tanks out of here. That is exactly why. Not just this dust. Look, you can't even see the floor anymore in here. Lights on, left on everywhere, of course. What an absolute disaster. Look, all the wiring. I don't know how they expected me to operate a business in here. This isn't going to be done in a week or two. They're not even going to be able to clean this in a week or two. I don't know what this stuff is. They're just using all my... everything's destroyed and banged up, smashed. Well, all of it. Here, top that off. That's why I didn't bring anything in here. I knew this was going to happen. What a nightmare. Look at this. This is supposed to be black. They've just destroyed this place. What do you guys think? Good for fish tanks, eh? And aquariums and reptiles and... Like, they didn't care. They don't... Look at this. It's getting worse as I progress. Oh my. Yeah. What an absolute destructive... This is not cool at all. And they wanted me to be able to, like, he's like, oh yeah, well, you can keep setting up. We'll work around you. And it'll be fine. Look at this. I am just completely and totally heartbroken. Everything's destroyed. So I took everything out of here. I knew this was going to happen. What an absolute monstrosity. Look at this ceiling. Look, it's coming down everywhere now. It's way worse. I don't know if they're up. Jesus. This is unacceptable. I've never, I was not expecting this. Oh, thank you for putting the plastic wrap down there. That was so kind of you. I appreciate it. Wow. What an absolute disaster. I can't believe this. How much work and time and money I put in here just to have this guy come along and destroy absolutely everything. This is what happens. I mean, come on, guys. Look, there's supposed to be a 700-gallon tank here. They're supposed to have tanks everywhere. These are all ruined now, all these stands. Not only are they all banged up and, like, this is probably the best shape of them all. And I just built these. I paid thousands of dollars in materials. Like, Lord knows what, I can see that it's already, I don't have a light, but you can already see it buckling, and I don't even know what. I gotta check this room too, I guess. I don't see footprints in here, so I don't run in. But yeah. Building destroyed, or at least I thought it was. I took everything out of there, and for good reason. I mean, but I figured, what if we wait another 2 weeks and we come back? I've got hope. Maybe it's done, completed, and they surprised me with how well they cleaned and repaired everything and put it all back to the way it was and fixed everything. I go back. It was 9 days later, technically, on July 28th, and this is what I saw. July 28th. This is the current state of things. It's almost like it got worse. What they've done to all my stuff, the floors. I was supposed to move in and bring fish tanks and reptiles and cages in here. That is nowhere close to being done. This meant nothing. Oh my God. Like, look. The entire building, which isn't that bad. I mean, a week or two of cleaning, and I guess. Look at this. Who the hell is doing this? They're just using the stands as a cutting board. Literally. That's a cutting board for them. All dinged up, smashed up. Everything is. Leaning everything against them. Nice. Well, this is heartbreaking. What a destructive. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Not even close to being done, eh? And we're on the 28th, July 28th. Nothing in there is done. Look at this. The quarantine systems were in there. Mind you, this floor we're looking at is not visible. This isn't safe to even be in here breathing, let alone have animals in here. Look at this. Let's go upstairs and check that out. Oh, I can't even stand here. Yeah. Everything's just getting destroyed. Two months of this styrofoam. Just probably isn't even there, so probably using a lot of my equipment. I'll just leave the lights on wherever they want. They're not paying the power bill, they don't care.
have it. Yep, move right in. We'll work around you. Where? You even used my stands, my fixtures. That's work tables. Like, who does this? Leaning all this stuff up there. That's not mine. A lot of this, like, the amount of time and money put in here is just ridiculous.
Not much further ahead, and just pure destruction and disrespect and lack of anything that I was told was going to happen. And I was supposed to move my tanks in there. I'm so happy I didn't. See, when I left on July 6th, I never went back. And because of multiple breaches in the lease, it led to many, many problems for me. So I got a lawyer. Why? I'll tell you in a second. So we got a problem. If your building's not up to code, there's not insurance companies that are going to insure your building or your property or anything. So if I do anything in there, or if I continue to do anything while they were still in there, and the building's not up to code, I'm not going to be able to have insurance. If they ruin anything, the place gets broken into, there's a fire, anything like that, guess who's held up for it? I'll lose my house, I'll lose everything. Now, the reason I mentioned the bylaws earlier and the building permit application, which has still not been completed, has still not been approved for occupancy. I was not supposed to be in there. Technically, I called the town in early July, right after I moved everything out, and I was like, I wanted to know what that meant. So I called the person that issued the requirements for that application, and he said, technically, you're not supposed to be in there until this work is complete. I was like, is it illegal though? Will I get in trouble? He's like, you'll have to have the landlord call me. I was like, is it illegal technically? I was like, I'm not mad, I'm not gonna do anything, blah, blah, blah. I just wanna know if it would technically be illegal for me to be in there. He's like, technically, yes. But he's like, I need to talk to the landlord, maybe there's a workaround or an explanation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, that's all I needed to hear. I know these are, again, some concerns that I have, but even more concerning is the building's not insulated, apparently. I don't know for sure, but that's what I was told by somebody that was actually in the walls. And that ceiling told to me, was it 3, 4, 5 times over and over and over again. As you guys said, I even recorded most of them. Well, they'll all be recorded. I just don't want to go through 2 months of footage. I probably will have to, but that the ceiling is a matter of time before it comes down. And of course, a big problem is, and the things that nobody wants to mention, or some people have said, wait it out, Joey, just be patient, etc. I can't keep losing money on this place. I'm paying thousands of dollars in bills every month for something I can't use. I don't have like endless amounts of revenue and savings where I already dumped everything in to just continue to do this, to do it and just pay for it in hopes that they'll finish. That's not even the biggest issue. None of that is. The biggest problem, why I've made my decision on what I'm doing, is I'm not delayed 2 months, I'm not delayed 3 months. I'm delayed well over a year, and I'll explain. We'll start with the initial plan. Move in by June, complete the basic setup by July 1st. Now, in the first 3 weeks, I only got a certain amount done, but that's because I was being limited and constantly having to do nightmarish type things and the show up there at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning on 8 hours notice. The landlord email me or text me at the middle of the night, say I need you to be there in the morning. Like just constantly something all throughout the month of June. So I didn't get as far as I wanted to. Plus, of course, the building's half empty. I would have moved way further and faster. But to be honest with you, I was dragging it out, trying to keep things suspenseful and interesting, but knowing that I can't really move faster than this wall. Move in by June, have the basic setup by July 1st, tanks in, everything ready, and then I could begin my application process with Department of Natural Resources of Nova Scotia. I wanted to keep certain animals that are technically illegal to keep in Nova Scotia unless you meet certain criteria. For example, your rehabilitation center, educational center, you can prove you can provide proper husbandry as well as the proper containments like cages. You have to prove that they can't get out of the cage, and you have to prove that they can't get out of the building. A number of things that you need to do before you can get these permits to keep certain types of animals. Then you renew it every year. How do I know this? I've done it before. This building, I wanted to keep a Cayman crocodile in, so a dwarf Cayman. And so I went through the application process. I was like, I might as well see if I could do it. I was approved, everything was good. I was ready to go. And I know the process and how long it takes. It takes about 6 weeks. But that would bring me to around August, mid-August, and I could begin to import, which is a great time because a lot of the animals that I want are available during the nicer months of the year, spring as well as summer. Plus, it's a lot safer for me to import certain animals during nicer weather, especially than it is in the winter. Some of them. A lot of things simply just aren't available during other months. I know I get that a lot though in comments, like some people are like, you should go get this fish or that fish, and it's not that simple. I can't just go to my pet store or my fish store and say I want this fish. It's whatever they have or whatever available on lists, whatever farms are producing, etc. Not everything is always available all of the time. So by September, all of the difficult animals to procure would be in my care. And I'd have 8 months to grow them out, get them established, have them doing really well, interacting, etc. And then the final setups, fine-tuning, I could do over the final months. And by May 2022 was my planned date to open. Now, depending on how fast I worked and how well things would have went, I could have opened a little early or maybe a little later. But because this is so delayed, this is what's happening now. If they get done this job by the end of August, which I mean, I don't know how many more 2-week time frames we can assume, but if they finish by mid-August, then the fine cleaning needs to be done. And I'm talking floor to ceiling. I'm not going back in there until this place is fine cleaned. So that means by September I could start over and bring the place back to the way it was, which would probably take me a month. And by October I'd be back to where we were at the end of June. By the end of October, I'd be ready to start my application. By mid-December, I'd be able to get the animals, but I can't now. It's the middle of the winter. It's not that safe. A lot of them are simply not available anymore. And that's the biggest thing is availability. It comes and goes, and a lot of things are seasonal. So because I wouldn't be able to get anything, I'd probably have to wait until May of 2022 to start that process. And then, spend a year like I planned or months like I planned, growing things out, getting them, established, etc. Maybe open in May of 2023. All the meantime, I'm paying the bills, all because of this. 23 months of bills, and how much are those bills? It averages, and these are low averages. There's a low and a high. The low, $7,500 a month. That's the lease. That's snow removal and maintenance. That's of course $5,000 a year for snow maintenance. By the way, I was like, I'll just shovel it, or I don't plan on opening it for a year anyways. These had to be paid. Security, insurance, power, heat. You name it. Basic bills. $7,500 to $12,000 a month, which is $120,000 average per year for the basics. That's not food, that's not anything, that's just keep the lights on. Do I have $120,000 to throw away? Answer simply is no. And I'm talking that is a low number in comparison to what I probably would have incurred in costs over the next 2 years. It would have been $240 in bills for the 2 years. So we have to consider our losses and potential here. I mean, we could put 2 and 2 together with this video. I mean, there's no money to keep dumping in there. I don't trust this landlord. I don't trust the process. I don't feel comfortable being in there. There's too many things. The ceiling, the walls aren't insulated. The ceiling's going to come down. It's just constant something there. And I'm starting to realize now that I've sugar-coated this video too with what actually else went on. So I got a lawyer, and I am serving. I already had the landlord served with a notice that I will not be continuing the lease for a multitude of reasons, most of which aren't even covered in this video. But there's so many multiple breaches of the lease, and this is costing me way too much, and I can't afford to continue to hold on to this hope of, well, maybe he'll change, or maybe this will, fix itself, or things will get better. It just keeps getting worse and worse. So I'm out. And the next question is, of course, what's next? Oh, and not only did I invest about 40 grand into that place up front, but I'm about 55,000 into it now. It's just astronomical numbers to me. You know, it's obviously being held up for 2 months, and storage fees and continuous costs is it just keeps adding up. So what's next? Another place? I can't. There was only one other place that would have been possibly suitable that I preferred, and once I toured it, there's no way that I can make that work. Big space, and I talked about 5,000 square feet, which is amazing, but just because it's a big space doesn't mean it's a good space, and it was just absolutely horrible. And even if I did like it, the place cost 3 times as much. I don't have any more money for that. I'm going to have to start saving like I just did. I saved for this place that I had. That I think it was like 60,000 I saved. So that is that. I gave it my best shot with the public aquarium, and you know, no, this wasn't my fault. I mean, I did everything I could. I did everything I said I would do, and no, you guys were right. Should have walked away. Well, I did. And you know, nothing suitable right now. I think I'll start saving again and potentially look at this idea next year. There's only one good thing that came of this. Being in there and getting to do that completely inspired me. A fresh place, getting away from my house. I've been in my house, I've been working from home for like 8 or 9 years. And having a place to go to was just so refreshing and so fun and so exciting. And I think a lot of it was because I was just doing exactly what I wanted to do. And it was just so inspiring. So I'm going to take that inspiration and all that equipment that I bought, and we're going to do this gallery the way I want to do it. And my plans are incredibly awesome, in my opinion. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm not a lawyer. We'll see what happens there.